everybody. Give you a chance to join me. I will likely be bothered by a needy cat. I can see she's already lurking. And she starts this early. And for sure, she is going to be relentless. I love cats and dogs and horses. Goats are, yes, I love them, but the devil takes the form of a goat for a reason. So I want to talk a little bit about Noviles and synastry, because I haven't spent a lot of time talking about these because it's taken me some maturity and some time, and usually some humbleness to really understand them, to really get it, to fully know what happens or what they do. So, it's been a good 15 years that I've been monitoring, looking, gathering, comparing. And, that'll take you so far, but then I had a breakthrough. And it's when there's like enough information and readiness. That is when I really, really get something. Because I'll get it on a level that is like, I don't know, it's like a visceral, personal level. It's like it's one thing to read something, and it's another thing to like live it out. I guess that's it. So yeah, Noviles, I want to talk a bit about that. We pay attention to planets that are in Novile really, really heavily when we're looking at synastry chart comparison in the D9 chart in Vedic astrology. It's heavily, heavily, heavily analyzed, and sometimes that might be the only thing that's analyzed because it's the big daddy of outcomes when it comes to happiness and fruitfulness. Because when planets are novile, either natal, but we're talking about synastry right now, they're coming from a uncorrupted like vineyard or tree. So there is this good foundation or good fruits that when you put that together, it lends more good fruits, and it is extremely fruitful. There's a flow, an ease, like a guarantee that comes with easy aspects, an ease of producing what both of the trees are suited for. So it's like you find the right kind of pollinator. So you can have, say, a row of blueberries, and they can be different varieties. And depending on what variety is active, actively producing, and what is pollinating and what is open to being pollinated, that timing, if you get it right, you're going to have really, really good results. And it's going to be a natural flow and opening between these two plants or these particular types of plants among many. So the ease of producing is why Noviles are so important. Because progeny, legacy, that is more very important or more focused on in certain cultures. And I think that's one of the reasons why in Western culture we really haven't paid attention to the Novile or had much to say about or even question how it really turns out. And it's an essentially easy aspect, and one that results in mutual hopes coming into reality. So we exist in like an uncorrupted wonder state when Noviles abound. That's either in synastry, we bring that out in us, this trusting, more Pollyanna-ish like attitude that flows between the two planets. And it's not something that contributes to bad things. It is a bit of an enclosed bubble of naivety, but that's different from a Neptunian bubble of delusion and denial. The motivation in a Novile is really about uncorrupted joyfulness and continued abundance and the belief and the faith in that. So what kind of hope we have does have a major impact on our happiness. And that's why Jupiter rules both these things. And Noviles are associated with that stage of development. So it's like we follow the yellow brick road and we don't run into the typical obstacles to growth. Because that was a growth inspiring journey that was taken along the yellow brick road. One of the most purely archetypal journeys. And the Noviles is interesting. It's like they start out from Munchkin land and we skip down that yellow brick road and we might even notice or encounter some of those difficulties, but we just kind of whistle and skip on past them. And the difference is it's not like a outright denial. It's like we don't believe in that. That's what it is. And somehow, because we don't feed it, we don't gravitate towards it, we're still caught up in our naive dream of this is going to work. It's all going to work out. It puts us in a position to stay on that path, keep on skipping down the yellow brick road. And those obstacles, those difficulties, those demons, they're acknowledged, but we don't go towards any of it. And we don't attract any of it, because I think that it's one of those situations where it's like either in the natal chart especially, but in synastry, there's it's like this energy of a child. And say there's a really aggressive person or animal, or say it's a witch. And that child is skipping down the yellow brick road, and it's like it even like looks at the witch or whatever, you know, bad thing is out there, or whatever pressure is there, or obstacles are there, scary things. And it's like it doesn't even comprehend it. It's like, oh, we just keep walking or skipping down the way. And it's like that thing or that witch is like, what? I'm right here. Everybody else is like lost their shit. What? Okay, I guess I'll go find somebody else to scare. So, situations, conditions, people, external pressures that seek to derail us or seek to, you know, throw a wrench into our plans. It's like the way it goes over our head results in this lack of blowback or conflict with whatever it is that we just whistled on past. So in the natal chart, somebody just asked a question about Noviles in the natal. Yeah, we can talk about that because that's something too that I've had a lot of insights about septiles and Noviles this year. Had a lot of extra understandings come in that really have connected some dots. Blur, you have the exact Venus Novile conjunction. That would be worth interviewing you for. There isn't a ton of collected information about Noviles, and there isn't a lot that you can't find. And what you do find is either very repetitive, more older information, or entirely made up. So Noviles in the natal chart link to needs, to organs of consciousness, to archetypal ways, in a very wondrous, childlike, innocent, naive conversation. And we get really good results out of them. We have to look at everything because we can see extreme conditions come as a result of layers of things in astrology. Noviles on their own are associated with good outcomes for the reason that I explained with in synastry. We're kind of whistling past the graveyard. So it is this assumption of our hope, our assumptions, the assumption that our assumptions will be borne out. That leads to good things because of the nature of hope. Because of the nature of our belief about good outcomes. And it doesn't come with the abject denial or storytelling or toxicity that we do see with Neptune. This is more akin to Jupiter, overestimation, without the repetitive going off the cliff because we're overdoing things or overestimating, giving ourselves into trouble with hubris, with the hard aspects that we associate with ninth house, Jupiter, Sagittarius things. This is, you know, very much like the Fool card, where that figure is just about to take that step over the cliff and definitely could fall. But with the Novile, another step appears out of nowhere. There's a lot of providence that can come into our life as a result of our thinking, our hopeful assumptions. Because Noviles show a part of our personality, two archetypes, two needs, two organs of consciousness, two beliefs that are linked in such a way that we exist in that state of childlike wonder before we realize how corrupt the world is and that adults can do bad things, before we come to that place where we realize that other people have lives. Do you remember that time? Can you remember back that young where you did think that the world revolved around you? For me, it took a lot longer, I think, than other people. Because my mom gave me a lot of reasons to believe that. I definitely believed that my parents and my mother existed solely for me. And in my mind, what I really thought about my mom is that when I left the house, when her children, her many children, left the house, she stopped animating and she just like sat in a rocking chair, even though we didn't have one. In my mind, somehow she was in a rocking chair. She just sat there motionless, waiting for us to come home. And then she would reanimate again when we came. It was ridiculous. But it made sense to me until one day I realized that, hey, mom has friends. Mom goes places during the day. Mom has a personality and a life. I was shocked. Shocked. But, yeah, come to find out, the world keeps going when I wasn't looking. That's Novile thinking. And it's in that state of wondrous belief, and it's like pre-fall from childhood grace. That's what brings the good things. Now, we can get into some trouble if we do have Noviles linked to other things that are difficult aspects, because we can be looking at layers of things that can be producing an extreme condition or a more nuanced interpretation of this. And that's why we have to look at everything together in a birth chart. What I teach here is the parts of the engine and how the little parts of the engine work. And when you understand that, then you can understand how they fit together. You go through the steps, the signs, the houses, the aspects, midpoints, all these different tools. You understand how the whole engine actually runs and fits together. That's synthesis. But when I talk about these little bits of things, I can't talk about the whole engine in one conversation. It's too complex. Blur. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you found out about your Novile later on, because they aren't something that most programs pull up. And they're not something that most people are even aware of. You have to be pretty hardcore astrology nerd to get into those types of minor aspects. But that does imply that a partner, the way that you pursue, because what you're looking at with Venus Mars aspects is our how we hunt, the type of what we want, the type of craving or sensual preference we have, Venus, and then how we act on that. And there is an attunement here with these two, but it does imply more of a childlike um, innocence when it comes to pursuing things and using your passions. Uh, is similar to how, but we can usually get away with it. It's generally okay. It doesn't produce conflict. It's kind of like how a child is able to, we have certain cultural norms, right? Expectations, boundaries, but a child can break those, and we laugh about it and think it's cute because it's not threatening. It's not disruptive. It's not offensive. That's that same thing, that same energy, that same action of a Novile. That the things that we break or that we don't, it's not even broken, things that we don't get. It's like a innocent, naive, like we don't read the room. But the response we get is not, it's not, we aren't shamed. We aren't ostracized. We don't get the pushback like we do within conjunctions, squares, oh God, oppositions. Mm-mm. And it's different from a quintile, how we get away with things with a quintile. With a quintile, it's our polished, intentional, no, smooth operators quintile. That's what I'm getting to now, Imogene. It's our intentional, practiced, suave, and charm that has us getting away with things with a quintile. And quintiles don't always lend the best results. Sometimes we are a used car salesman. A lot of times people can pervert their quintile to ways of getting things or ways of handling people where we are using our charm and we're able to Casanova our way into things. But is it always in everybody's best interest? Usually we're coming out, if not a lot ahead, at least a little bit ahead with a quintile. See, we don't have that intention with a Novile. That's the difference. Quintiles are, we practice until we're perfect. There is a focus because we realize we've got something here. We realize we got some kind of talent or some kind of mojo early on. And we put a lot of our focus into developing that. With a biquintile, it's already developed, and we get kind of a weird, wondrous Novile approach out of it. Binovile too. Binovile is that same energy of just whistling past the graveyard. And it's even more so unconscious that there's a witch there. We might even look over with a binovile and not only notice, like we would with a novile, but even stop and laugh and point, eat some popcorn, and just keep walking on. There's like an innocent bravery even that comes in with a binovile. A little bit of a nuanced difference between the two. Because with aspects, what we're looking at is the unfolding of that particular primary energy. So the unfolding of sextiles, you see sextiles going through, Noviles too, actually wrapped up in that too, going through that process of unfolding where, we start out with that fairly easy, but more active sextile, and that progresses to the even easier, more lazier trine. See the same thing with the quintile, where it's that focused, concentrated development. And then as it gets bigger, the aspects become bigger, the numbers become bigger as they unfold. They go from 40 to 80 degrees, and then all the way around. It becomes a more integrated, effortless action. So that's why we see more of a punch or a concentration of energy or doing of action with more of the primary aspects. Because you have to look at it like a seed. When we have, because anything nearing the conjunction or there's smaller primary aspects, it is a seed point. It's the beginning point. And a seed has everything in it initially to feed itself, to get itself going. And that is what is described in that first jumping off point, or that first energetic burst, is there's this concentrated energy or food. Yeah. Yeah, it's a concentration of activity that as we study it, it grows, yeah, out of that, and doesn't have the same intensity. That's the word. Doesn't have the same intensity. But it does lend, yeah, the fruits. We're looking at it. We're the kind of fruits. So it is even more fruitful with the binovile. And that's generally the rule with all of the aspects, until some of them, you get into the trine, get beyond the trine. Gosh, like 140, 160 degrees. Then we start to get into ways of being or thinking or acting where, sorry, I think I rubbed some eyelash glue on my face. Where it happens so easy or effortlessly or without thinking that we may not even notice or choose to put anything into or have our attention drawn to those types of aspects. Because when we go to the therapist, we go to solve problems. When we're in a relationship, our attention and our focus tends to go to what's wrong. So we generally don't spend a lot of time focusing on our blessings or what is working. And these are like blessings that are so, I guess, consistent that we kind of don't even see them or notice them. It's things that go right about the world that we can't take for granted. So, hey, Anne. Aries, Venus in the 11th, Novile, Taurus ascendant. Venus by quintile Chiron, very good. Trine Pluto. The sesquiquadrate moon. So Venus in the sesquiquadrate to the moon can be a bit more difficult, because that's where you're having to achieve a precarious balance between wants and needs. And it takes some living to be able to include both those things, because we tend to err more heavily on one or the other. And then when we find fulfillment in the one or the other suffers. So we never feel like we have the kind of relationships, home, environments, sometimes clothing or comforts that check off all the boxes. And so there's that essential feeling of dissatisfaction with those hard aspects. That's why we can be harder to please in relationships. And men with those hard aspects, they are harder to please within relationships as well. So you have to make sure to consciously make a life for yourself where you do not, in one way or another, freeze out your need for comfort or your need for sensual enjoyment and just wanting what you want. You have to get creative and find relationships, jobs, a life where you are going to have to spend more energy figuring out how you're going to have it all. But you do need to have it all because you can. That exists. Ask somebody with the trine or with the conjunction. That's their reality. And then looking at the Novile from Venus to the Ascendant. Very sweet. Anything that is overlaid on or strikes our window to the world, which is the Ascendant, is going to consistently color our interpretation view of reality. That's our particular window film. And you have a beautiful Novile from Venus. All the good aspects from Venus to the Ascendant can be very helpful when it comes to our general outlook, output, the type of body language that you will exhibit, the frequency that you'll initially show up with. Really good stuff there. So we have this appreciation that comes with Venus, this grace, willingness to cooperate, a sweetness that is woven into how you are going to show up in most situations. That is the Ascendant. That's the armor that we wear, that we adopt, the persona that we adopt in most situations. And it is us, but it is the most superficial and often defensive version of us. As you get to know us more, then you'll get to see our sun, to see what we think of ourselves and the kind of validation and applause we like to have. And then if you get to know us even more, we might show you our moon. That's revealing what's going on inside, needs, vulnerabilities, attachments, feelings. So it sounds to me like you got a good thing going on here. Because we want to look at the world and others in the most positive way possible. And having a lovely ascendant or an ascendant that is more cooperative, positive, benevolent, that's going to bring a lot of good results. We're going to have that reflected right back to us. So, sounds like you got a good thing going on there. Although you do want to be aware of other aspects that may be impacting the ascendant, because sometimes the best interpretation isn't the correct one. And if we have other things going on that are contributing to having some film that you might overlay onto the window, some wishful thinking, some things that are more obscuring, Neptune stuff, Pluto stuff like that. Attitudes or, a history that can make it more difficult to see things in a more open, non-defensive way, that's where an aspect like this can at times be contributing to some difficult things. Because we may not have the street smarts that a lot of people do with a Novile. Because we haven't come out of this place of accepting that the world is a cold, hard place with this. And if we have other things going on that are where we're putting ourselves in a position of threat or danger, or if we are more rebellious, even if we have some defensive attitudes at the ascendant, if you couple that with a ready trust and a naivety, that's where we can sometimes make some choices with one part of our personality and not realize that this other part of our personality, or another way that we are, is we're actually putting ourselves in danger. So it's something to keep in mind. The birth chart is very multi-layered. So in themselves, Noviles are very good, but you just want to look at what it's a part of when it comes to the larger belief system in your chart. Now, that is a very good observation, lost age. And so Novile in this case is not bad. Does it play more into the good or bad? I think and not knowing more about your chart, I think is good. It sounds like it's an overall positive thing. Lost age. This is a really good comment. I'm going to bring this one up in class with my apprentices. Lost age says, I feel with Sun trine Moon, we have a hard time changing for people because the way we are works for us. That is also conjunction thinking. Yep. If there's not a problem, if it's not broke, why fix it? And we can get that feedback with trines, with conjunctions, certain conjunctions that aren't, building into a crisis point where we're like, okay, I got to do something about this. And before they actually do build there, because we have a blind spot when it comes to our natural way with a conjunction. It's not a blind spot with a trine. It is it's what we describe as that's just the way I am, and it works for me. And it is the lack of difficulty or failure that does lead to laziness in our nature. And sometimes that's fine. There's nothing that we actually do need to update or further do with the trine. That's not always the case. Traditionally, we look at trines as like the blessing of blessings, and they only bring good things, and you will only get the best results, and they are a gift from God. And the more trines you have, the more of a gift you are from God. Not always, because you have to look at it like mastery that doesn't require anything else. And with trines, we also lose the ability to look at things with beginner's eyes. I have a perfect trine to the second between Jupiter and Saturn. Perfect trine. And that is something that I can suffer from, is forgetting that what comes easy for me isn't as easy for somebody else. And I have to remind myself to look at things through the eyes of novelty, or more through beginner's eyes. So I do understand how to explain things, how to go about things, because there is an ignorance with a trine, because we're already in a flow of something. If we don't make some conscious efforts um, to get out of the hammock. We don't maximize them. We can waste a lot of our ability. So trines mixed in with hard aspects can actually be extremely helpful. Thank God I have trines and sextiles related to my ridiculous Mars-Jupiter opposition. It's been so helpful over the years to have some things that are working. They can kind of take up the slack or make up for or inform and sometimes apologize for what I can have a problem with. So trines can be the best escape valves when it comes to bringing a awareness to or an ability to change or to modify or to pick up the pieces in relationship to hard aspects. Imogene, what about quintiles and noviles between malefics like Mars and Saturn? It's still going to result in the same kind of planetary conversation. They're still involved in this bubble of belief. So it is more helpful. It links them more like a sextile or a trine, where we have an assumption of an assumption of things working out. Now, depending on what the combination is, because certain combinations of planets are better partners than others, and some become better partners depending on what angle they're involved with each other in, what aspect there is. So this can make a hopeful carpenter out of a Mars-Saturn combination. You know the old saying, measure twice, cut once? We may not do that with Mars-Saturn in a novile. In fact, we can waste some energy. Mars-Saturn are talking about efficient use of libido, energy, calories, muscle, ambition. And so this is a way that Mars and Saturn are linked together where it can be, going down that yellow brick road in our hopeful, with our hopeful halo, and not be gauging correctly what resources we have, how much time, energy does it take to pursue something, to master something. We tend to see the best outcome, and so we may not see the signs here. Saturn is direction. Mars is impulse. So we may not see the signs that say that way to the castle. And we're like, we're going down the yellow brick road, down the yellow brick road. And we just keep going left until, we get several miles down there. It starts to get dark and we look back and we're like, where are we? And it wouldn't be like there was blame involved. It wouldn't be like there was some catastrophe. It's a blissful ignorance, not noticing how one misses the turn or gets caught up or wastes energy. Most Mars-Saturn aspects, the hard aspects, do lend a type of cruelty. That is not the case with this particular linkage. trying to think of a example, like a better example. It's like a hapless, put like a hapless predator. What kind of animals actually embody that? Let me think. Something that you think is going to be fierce and you should protect yourself from, but upon closer inspection, it's actually fine. This could also show up, though, as having the majority of our behavior be very cooperative, in tune with our idea of the best kind of outcome. But when some pressure is put on us, we can turn into a koala bear. Koalas are interesting. They look cute, but they're not really that friendly. They might scratch you, and they do scream, and they do bite. They probably pee on you, and they might give you chlamydia. So, not saying that people with the novile between Mars and Saturn have chlamydia. No. It's how we react to things after the fact. Mars can be very reactive. Saturn is our idea of self-respect, how we take responsibility for things. So our protestations, or the way that we stamp our feet, we may do a bit of a Rumpelstiltskin with the novile between Mars and Saturn. The thing is, probably will not get fired for that, as opposed to like the square, or oh God, the opposition or something. Oh my God. We can be very severe and very punishing, and we often do experience people that want to fight us, or we feel like we're going to be rubbed out by more brutal forces than us. We always have to be ready for that. And that's why we're always poised for being crushed. There are a lot of boxers, fighters, people that have perfected their precise killing skills, because Mars, Saturn, Mars, Pluto tends to produce that idea of readiness or defense. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Offense is a good you know what I mean. So there is a a lack of correct estimation that can come with the novile between these, but it's got an innocent like ignorance about it, that it makes it very hard for us to perceive people that get noviles wrong as intentionally difficult or a problem. Again, it's one of the things where they may be able to get away with things, much like quindiles, but for different motivations. We may be able to get away with things with noviles because we are not motivated to take anything from anybody. There isn't a selfish intent that comes with it. So intent is everything when it comes to forgiving people. It's much easier to forgive somebody for being ignorant or hapless or just kind of a dunderhead than it is for somebody that's been calculating, manipulating, waiting. So we actually do get a lot of forgiveness with Noviles. Okay. Lincoln. Sextiles are a street smart aspect. They are a aspect that we associate with correct. We ask the right questions and we seek out the right sources. They are they are aspects of intelligence because of the curiosity and the lack of preconceived ideas, notions. There isn't a prejudice that is there with a sextile. That's why we have really, really good outcomes with them, because we're including sources of information that are in tune with curiosity. There isn't a closedness or a ideologically driven outcome with sextiles. So they are, really the best aspects for developing the best arguments and having good reasons for, one opinion or another. Yes, Blur, you encapsulated it perfectly. That's all I should have said. And Aries, Venus, 11th house. Biquintile, Scorpio, Chiron in the 6th, close to the descendant. No, no, no. Okay, so you don't see the benefit or the superpower. No, there's some good things going on here. First of all, Venus being in the 11th is very good. And a biquintile to Chiron is excellent. Ease of incorporating healing into your attachment system, how you love, being open to more creative or sometimes non-allopathic methods of healing, because that is coming into the 6th, and that being what is in tune with your idea of what feels good to you, what satisfies. It's Venus stuff. And that good relationship between those two things, being close to the descendant, that's part of what you will draw out or experience in others, is people that do have the capacity for the interest in bringing healing into or themselves, having done some amount of work when it comes to soothing themselves, developing capacities to love and be loved in mutually satisfying ways. So we see some emotional intelligence coming into things related to the shadow side there. I think this sounds really darn good. And these are because it's so close to the 7th house, these are your capacities. This is your stuff. These are your gifts that are going to be brought out or experienced within the context of relationships. So you can have that beauty with you all the time. It's when we have enough relationship with ourselves, or we've had enough experience looking into the mirror of others, and we realize what we look like. That's when we really start to take ownership of these things. And we start to come into that really sovereign delightedness that it makes it really hard to have a relationship if it doesn't give you at least what you can give yourself. Entry into your club, the cover charge into the club of relationship with you gets more expensive when you come into a genuine appreciation of your own time, and you do not want to give that up for something that isn't at least as good or better. So there's a lot of good things that are woven into the the helpfulness that you have within you that you're likely to experience in the context of relationships, but it's with you all the time, whether or not anybody else is around to bring it out in you or to benefit from it. Imaging, yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, guys, I'm gonna get going. Oh my God, it's been almost an hour. What? I don't have any sense of time anymore. It was so good to connect with you. I will get out to do the weather forecast today with the girls and get that posted. And I will see you guys super soon.